You did everything they told you. You bought the bag. You bought the soil. You set it out by the back steps, and you watered that thing all summer long, every morning, coffee in one hand and the hose in the other. The plants came up green and tall, and you started planting on potatoes. Then October came. You tipped that bag over onto the grass and went through it with your bare hands. Roots, dirt, and three little potatoes the size of marbles. $30 in, counting the soil and the seed, and nothing to show for it but a backache and a question you couldn't answer. What did I do wrong? Well, I'll tell you what you did wrong. Probably nothing more than what some video told you to do. Because here's the thing. Growing potatoes in a bag works. Folks grew them in feed sacks and barrels long before anybody sold a fabric grow bag. But the way it's being taught now is half wrong and half made up. Nobody showed you the real way. And there's a reason nobody showed you. We'll get to that. My name is Walter Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and I farm the same Ozark ground in Missouri that my grandfather worked back in the 1940s. He grew potatoes through years when potatoes were the difference between a full winter and a hungry one. I've grown them in the ground, in barrels, in old sacks, and in those fabric bags they sell now. Today I'm going to teach you the way that actually works. 10 steps, planting to storing. Starting from nothing, you can set this up for under $15, and one bag done right will give you 5 to 10 pounds of potatoes. I want to be honest about that number, because you've seen the videos where a fellow tips over one bag and 50 pounds comes rolling out. Listen, if 50 pounds comes out of one bag on camera, somebody put most of it in there the night before. 5 to 10 pounds is the truth. And step number 8 is the one that explains why your bag grew beautiful green leaves and not one single potato. Most folks have never heard it laid out plain. Don't you leave before we get there. Let's get into it. Step 1. Understand why the bag works in the first place. Because once you know the why, the rest of this makes sense. A potato is not a root. It's a swollen piece of underground stem, and it needs loose soil to swell in. Plant one in heavy clay like we've got here in Missouri, and that poor thing fights for every inch. In a bag, you control the soil completely. Loose and fluffy, no rocks, no clay. The potato grows like a fist opening up in soft sand. And there's a second reason, and for a lot of us it's the bigger one. No digging, none. You never put a shovel in the ground, and you never put a knee in the dirt. Set the bag up on a couple of cinder blocks or an old bench, and the whole job happens at waist height. When harvest comes, you don't dig potatoes. You tip the bag over onto a tarp and pick them up like Easter eggs. My niece handed me their letter of resignation about 10 years back. The bags are how I ignore it. Step 2, the bag itself. You've got 2 good choices and 1 bad one. A 10-gallon fabric grow bag runs $5 or $6, lasts 5 seasons or more, and the fabric breathes, which keeps the roots from cooking and the water from standing. That's the first good choice. The second one is free. Use the soil bag itself, the plastic bag your potting mix came in. Roll the top down, punch 8 or 10 drainage holes in the bottom with a screwdriver, and you've got a planter that costs you nothing. The bad choice is a bucket with 1 little hole in the bottom. Potatoes rot in standing water faster than anything I grow, and 1 hole doesn't drain a summer thunderstorm. Here's where most folks go wrong with this one. They go too big. They buy a 30-gallon bag thinking more room means more potatoes, and then the middle of that bag stays cold and wet, and the crop rots in the center where they can't see it. 10 gallons. 3 seed potatoes. That's the recipe. If you want more potatoes, you don't want a bigger bag. You want more bags. Step 3. The seed potato. You can plant 2 kinds. Certified seed potatoes from a farm store run maybe $8 for a small bag, and they're guaranteed free of disease. That's the safe road, and if this is your first year, take it. The other road is the one my grandfather took because there was no farm store. A store-bought potato that's gone soft in the pantry and started sprouting will grow. I won't pretend otherwise. The risk is that grocery potatoes can carry diseases you can't see, and some are treated so they never sprout at all. So if your pantry potato has eyes pushing out, it'll likely grow. If it's been sitting there bald for 2 months, it's been treated, and it's dinner, not seed. Either way, here's what you do. Cut any potato bigger than an egg into pieces, and make sure every piece carries at least 2 eyes, those little dimples where the sprouts come from. Then comes the part people skip. Let those cut pieces sit on the counter for 2 or 3 days until the cut side dries into a tough skin. Plant a fresh wet cut and it rots in the ground before it ever grows. Let it heal first. And one more thing, because folks mix these up all the time. Sweet potatoes are a different plant entirely with different rules. None of this applies to them. Now, before we get to the soil, let me ask you something. What did you spend at the grocery store last month? I'd bet potatoes weren't the only thing that's gone up. This channel exists for one reason: to pass on the old ways of growing and keeping food, the ways that cost almost nothing, before the people who remember them are gone. Subscribing is free, and it's the smartest thing you'll do in the garden today. That's all I'll say about it. Step 4, the soil mix, and I'll give you the exact recipe, because this is the question everybody asks and almost nobody answers. 2 parts plain potting soil. The cheap stuff is fine. 1 part compost. That's the whole mix. If you've got old leaves or a little straw, throw in a handful or 2 to keep it loose. What you must not do is fill that bag with dirt out of your yard. Garden soil packed into a bag sets up like a brick by July. It can't breathe, it can't drain, and the potatoes can't swell. The other thing to leave out is fresh manure. I know it feels like good farming, but fresh manure in a potato bag gives you scab, rough, corky patches all over the skin, still edible, but ugly, and they don't keep. If you use manure at all, it needs to be a year old and crumbly, more dirt than anything else. Potatoes like their soil loose, a touch on the acid side, and a little hungry. That's how the bag should start. The feeding comes later, and there's less of it than you think. Step 5, when to plant, and this depends entirely on where you live, so listen for your part of the country. Potatoes want to start in cool soil, about 50 degrees in the ground, and they want to finish before the deep heat. If you're up north in zones 3 and 4, your window's open right now. Late May into the middle of June is your time, and you've got nothing to apologize for. If you're in the middle of the country, zones 5 through 7 like me, the spring window has closed. Don't plant a bag in July and expect much, because here's the rule nobody told you. When the soil climbs over about 80 degrees, the plant quits making potatoes. It'll grow leaves all day long in the heat. It just won't fill the bag. But you're not out of the game. Plant in late July or early August, and let the crop fill out in the cool of September and October. And if you're down south in zones 8 and 9, the summer bag is a lost cause, and it always was. Your potato season is fall and winter. Plant in late summer or early fall, and you'll be eating new potatoes while the rest of us are shoveling snow. There's no month on the calendar when this method is useless to you. There's only your window. Step 6. How to plant. And this is where the old-timer's trick comes in. Don't fill the bag. Put 4 to 6 inches of your soil mix in the bottom. The bag will look embarrassingly empty, and that's correct. Set 3 seed pieces on that layer, cut side down, eyes pointing up, spaced like 3 points of a triangle. Cover them with 3 or 4 inches of mix and water them in. That's planting day. 10 minutes, start to finish. The mistake, and I've watched people make it, is filling the bag to the top and tucking the potatoes in just under the surface like tulip bulbs. Do that, and everything the plant builds happens in the top 4 inches, and come fall, you harvest a handful of marbles off the surface. Which might sound familiar. The potato plant builds its crop along the buried stem upward from the seed. So the seed goes low, and the soil comes later, a little at a time, as the plant climbs. Which brings us straight to the step that does most of the work. And stay with me here, because step 8 is 2 steps away. No, 1 step away now. And it's the one that answers the question that brought half of you to this video. The bag full of beautiful leaves with nothing underneath. There's a reason. There are 3, actually. Step 7, hilling. This is the heartbeat of the whole method, and it's the step the pretty videos skip because it's boring to film. When your plants stand about 8 inches tall, pour in more soil mix until only the top 3 or 4 inches of each plant is showing. Yes, bury most of it. The plant doesn't mind. It climbs. 2 weeks later, it's 8 inches above the new soil line, and you do it again. Keep that up until the bag is full to within a couple inches of the rim. Every hilling protects the crop forming down below in that deep, loose column of soil. Now I need you to take this next part seriously, because it's the one real safety rule in potatoes. Any potato that grows close enough to the surface to catch sunlight turns green. That green means solanine, and solanine is a poison. Enough of it will make you good and sick, and it's harder on small children. Hilling is how you prevent it. And at harvest, if you find a green one anyway, it goes in the trash, not the soup pot. Don't trim around it for the table. Margaret has thrown out exactly 2 potatoes in 40 years, and she inspects every single one like it owes her money. Be like Margaret. Step 8. The leaves and no potatoes problem. You watered faithfully. The plants were gorgeous. The bag came up empty. Here's what happened, and it's one of 3 things, sometimes all 3 at once. The first is fertilizer. If you fed that bag anything meant for a lawn, or any fertilizer where the first number on the label is the big one, you told the plant to make leaves. Nitrogen grows tops. Give a potato plant plenty of nitrogen, and it will happily grow you a hedge and skip the potatoes entirely because, as far as it's concerned, life is good. The second is heat. We talked about it. Soil over about 80 degrees and tuber making shuts down. A dark bag on a concrete patio in July can run 20 degrees hotter than the air. The plant isn't dying. It's waiting. And in most of this country, summer outlasts its patience. The third one is the saddest, because it's the gardener pulling defeat out of the jaws of victory. The plant flowers. Then the leaves go yellow. Then the whole top falls over and turns brown, and folks look at that and see disease. They think they failed, and some of them dump the bag right then to see what went wrong, weeks before the crop has sized up. Listen to me. That dying down is not failure. That is the potato plant ringing the dinner bell. The tops are supposed to die. When they fall over and brown out, you wait 2 more weeks while the skins set, and then you harvest. My grandfather used to say a potato isn't ready until the plant has quit. Half the empty bags in this country were full bags, harvested 6 weeks too soon. Now, do something for me before we finish this out. Put your state in the comments, or your USDA zone if you know it. Potato timing is the most local thing there is. I read everyone, and what you tell me decides what we cover next. That's not a line. That's how this channel gets built. Step 9. Water and food. And the numbers are simple. Push your finger 2 inches into the soil every morning. Dry at the fingertip, you water. Damp, you walk away. In spring, that might mean twice a week. In high summer, a fabric bag can dry out in a single day, and you'll water daily. But what kills more bagged potatoes than drought is the opposite. Watering on a schedule instead of by the finger, keeping that soil soggy and rotting a crop you can't see. Even moisture, never swampy. That's the whole rule. As for food, you barely need any if your mix had compost in it. A fresh handful of compost stirred into each hilling is how I do it, and it has not failed me yet. If you'd rather use a bagged fertilizer, use one made for tomatoes at half the strength on the label, once a month at most. And remember, Step 8, the hungrier side of plenty is exactly where a potato makes potatoes. Step 10, the harvest and what comes after, because this is where the money part turns true. The tops die, you wait your 2 weeks, and then you spread an old sheet or a tarp, tip the bag over, and crumble the soil apart with your hands. No fork, no shovel, no stabbed potatoes. From a 10-gallon bag done right, you'll pick up 5 to 10 pounds. Don't wash them. Brush the dirt off and let them sit 2 weeks somewhere dark and airy. A garage shelf, a box in a spare room. The old folks called this part of the year putting food by, and they took it as seriously as the planting. Then into a paper sack somewhere, cool and dark, and they'll keep for months. Now to math, and I'll be straight with you, because that's the only way I know how to talk. Year 1, between the bag, the soil, and the seed, you'll spend about what those potatoes would have cost at the store, close to a wash. But year 2, you own the bag. The spent soil goes on your flower beds. Never grow potatoes in the same soil twice. Disease builds up in it. And fresh mix plus seed runs you a few dollars against $20 or $30 of grocery potatoes per bag, per season, at whatever they're charging by then. The store sells you potatoes once. The method feeds you for good. Let's put this away properly. By problem, not by number. If your knees or your back are the reason you gave up the garden, the bag goes up on 2 cinder blocks at waist height, and you never kneel and never dig again. If your last try gave you leaves and marbles, the fix is low seed, soil added as it climbs, no lawn fertilizer, and hands off until the tops die down. If you're up north racing a short season, plant this week and use the fabric bag. It warms faster than the ground does. If you're down south melting through August, quit fighting summer. Your bag goes in come September, and your potato season runs while the furnace does. And if money is the whole point, the free version is sitting right there. The soil's own bag for a planter a sprouting pantry potato for seed, compost for food, and the real savings starting in year 2. There's a version of this for every yard and every body. That's why the old people never gave it up until somebody talked them out of it. Which brings me to why nobody taught you this. Nobody hid it. The incentives just did the quiet work. A garden center makes nothing off a customer who reuses a free bag and feeds it compost. The fertilizer aisle makes nothing off a plant that does better half-starved. And those harvest videos with 50 pounds rolling out of one sack, they're not selling potatoes, they're selling clicks. And your disappointment never shows up in their view count. There's just no money in teaching a thing that works forever. So, it quietly stopped getting taught. That's the whole story. Here's your job this week, and it's free. Before Sunday, go to your pantry and find one potato with eyes starting to push. Set it in an egg carton on a windowsill, eyes up. That's it. If your planting window's open, it'll be sprouted and ready inside 2 weeks. If you're waiting for fall, you've just started learning what a good seed potato looks like. Either way, you've begun. And tell me one more thing while you're down there with your zone. Did your family grow potatoes? Who dug them? Was that your job as a kid? Following along behind your dad or your grandmother, picking potatoes out of the turned dirt and putting them in a bucket? Write me a line about it. Those little family stories are exactly the kind of thing that gets lost when nobody writes them down. In the next one, we'll take care of what you grew. How the old folks kept potatoes, onions, and squash all winter long without a root cellar in the corner of an ordinary house. Because growing it is only half the old way. Keeping it is the other half. That's the old garden way. I'll see you in the garden.